The desert sun was beginning to fall behind the wide orange sky when Elias Turner guided his horse toward the long stretch of land that led back to his small ranch. The day had been long but peaceful, filled with the ordinary work he had come to know so well, checking fences, counting cattle, and making sure the younger calves stayed close to the herd. The quiet rhythm of life suited him. He liked the wide open spaces, the slow wind moving over the dry grass, and the feeling that every sunset gave the world a soft, gentle pause. Elias was the kind of man who didn't say much unless something needed saying. He had grown up on these lands, raised by a father who believed that a calm heart and honest hands were more important than anything else. His mother had passed on early, and though the years had softened the sadness, he still carried her memory like a small, steady flame inside him. Whenever he felt unsure, he remembered her words. If you can help someone, help them. Don't wait for someone else to step in. That evening, as he rode along the dry riverbed, a place he passed nearly every day, something unusual caught his eye. His horse slowed on its own, sensing Elias's curiosity. At first, he thought it was just a bundle of brush or a fallen blanket someone had left behind. The light was dim, making shapes harder to recognize, but when he moved closer, he saw the faint outline of a person. Elias felt his heartbeat shift. He climbed down from his horse and walked slowly, careful not to startle whoever it was. The desert could be dangerous in its own quiet way, especially if someone was lost or exhausted from the long heat of the day. As he reached the shape, he saw it was a woman. She was lying near the old riverbed, partly hidden by dried weeds. Her clothes suggested she was from one of the nearby Apache groups. Her eyes were closed, her breathing faint but steady. She looked exhausted, as if she had been trying to walk a long distance and finally collapsed from the effort. The desert was unforgiving to anyone traveling alone without shade or water. Elias knelt beside her, speaking softly. "Ma'am? Can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered a little, but she did not fully wake. There was no sign of danger around her. No tracks, no belongings scattered nearby. Whoever she was, she seemed to have been alone for a while. He looked around the empty land, thinking about what to do. The nearest settlement was miles away, and nighttime was approaching quickly. The desert nights could be cold and harsh if someone was weak or without shelter. He knew she needed help soon, or she would not be able to continue. But helping her was not a simple choice. Elias had heard people talk in town. Tensions between settlers and some Apache families had been rising in recent months, mostly due to misunderstandings and worries rather than real conflict. Many settlers were nervous, and many Apache families were protective of their people and traditions. Because of this, both sides sometimes treated each other with caution. Elias was not a man who liked taking risks that could cause trouble in the community, but he also wasn't the type to leave a person in need. His mother's voice echoed again in his memory. If you can help someone, help them. He looked at his horse, strong, calm, loyal. That horse was more than transportation to him. It was his daily partner, helping him with work, carrying him across long stretches of land, and giving him comfort in lonely moments. Losing the horse, even temporarily, would make his life harder. But losing the horse was a small challenge compared to what could happen if he left this woman here. Alone, and unable to move, he placed his hand gently under her shoulder and tried speaking again. "You need to ride. My horse can take you somewhere safe." This time, she opened her eyes slightly. They were dark, calm, and full of exhaustion. She didn't speak, but she seemed to understand what he was trying to do. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Elias helped her sit up slowly, making sure she didn't fall. Her movements were weak, her balance unsteady. He led his horse closer, speaking softly to both of them. It took patience, but eventually she managed to settle onto the saddle. She held the reins lightly, though it was clear she didn't have much strength left. Elias stepped back, looking up at her from the ground. He felt a mix of worry and hope. "Go slow," he told her gently. "My home is a few miles west, but your people might be closer east. The horse knows the land. He'll carry you wherever you guide him." The woman blinked once, as if thanking him without words. Elias smiled softly. hoping she understood his intention. He didn't want anything from her. He simply knew she needed the horse more than he did at that moment. He patted the horse's neck. "Take good care of her," he whispered. The horse started forward, steady and calm, carrying the woman away from the dry riverbed and toward the horizon. Elias watched until the shape of the horse and rider disappeared into the soft colors of evening. For a moment, everything fell completely silent. Only the wind moved, brushing lightly over the dry grass. Elias stood alone, realizing what he had just done. He had given away the one thing he depended on every day. He had no quick way home now. No way to reach his cattle before nightfall. No way to avoid the long walk under the cooling desert sky. But strangely, he didn't feel regret. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of peace. Something in him knew that compassion mattered more than comfort. He might face trouble later, questions, doubts, maybe even frustration from neighbors, but he also knew he had acted with a genuine heart. He began the walk home, step by step, knowing it would take hours. The desert looked different on foot, wider and heavier. But Elias accepted the journey. He had done what felt right, and that thought kept him steady as the last of the sunlight faded. What he didn't know was that the woman he helped would return to him, not out of obligation but out of deep gratitude. He didn't yet know that his small act of kindness would open a door he never expected, one that would change his understanding of people, culture, and the land itself. He had no idea that the gift she would later bring into his life would be something far beyond what he could imagine, but that was all in the future. For now, all he could do was walk home under the growing night, carrying nothing but the hope that his choice had made a difference. The first steps of Elias's long walk back home felt light, almost calm. The desert air had cooled, and a soft wind brushed against his face. He kept thinking about the woman riding away on his horse, hoping she would reach her people safely. At the same time, he knew he had a long journey ahead of him. Walking miles in the fading light wasn't easy, but Elias accepted it with the quiet patience he had learned from years of living on the land. As he walked, the sky turned deep purple. Then a blanket of stars spread out above him. The desert at night was different, peaceful, but also wide and mysterious. Every sound felt sharper. The rustle of dry plants, the distant call of a night bird, the soft shifting of sand under his boots. Elias kept his steps steady, thinking about the woman's tired eyes and the way she tried to speak even though she didn't have the strength. His horse had carried strangers before, but never like this, never in a moment when someone's life depended on it. Elias wondered if anyone in town would understand his decision. Most people liked things simple and straightforward, and helping someone from a different community sometimes made them anxious. But Elias wasn't worried about their opinions. He had acted from his heart, and that was enough for him. But even with this calmness, he couldn't shake a small worry from his mind. The journey would take hours, and he still had chores waiting for him at home. His cattle needed to be checked. His small vegetable patch needed water. His horse always helped him finish everything before nightfall. Without the horse, he would reach home much later, tired and dusty. After nearly an hour of walking, he stopped to rest near a tall yucca plant. The moon was rising now, giving the desert a silver glow. Elias took a sip of water from the small canteen he always carried. It wasn't much, but it kept him going. As he stood there, he heard something in the distance, the soft crack of dry grass. He tensed for a moment, wondering if it was an animal or just the wind. When no other sound followed, he continued walking, choosing not to let worry interrupt his journey. By the time he reached the small hill overlooking his ranch, the night had grown deeper. The lights from his windows were faint, but they gave him a sense of comfort. He quickened his pace, wanting to wash his face, rest his legs, and maybe heat some leftover stew. But when he reached the gate, he found a small group of neighbors gathered at the edge of the road. Their faces showed curiosity and confusion. "Elias," one of them called out, "where's your horse? We saw you riding out this morning." Elias felt a gentle sigh rise in his chest. He knew the questions were coming sooner or later, but he wasn't sure how to explain the situation without making anyone worried. The land around them had been peaceful for years, but some folks like to turn small things into big concerns. I let someone use him, Elias said simply. She needed help. The group exchanged glances. Another neighbor stepped forward and asked, "Someone from the Apache camp?" Elias nodded. A small murmur went through the group. The people weren't unkind, but they were cautious. News traveled fast in small communities, especially when it involved people from outside the town. Some of the neighbors shifted uneasily. Not because they disliked anyone, but because uncertainty made them nervous. "Is everything all right?" A woman asked softly, her voice full of worry rather than judgment. "Yes," Elias replied. She was tired and needed a way home. My horse was the only way she could travel safely. The neighbors listened, their expressions mixed. Elias knew what some of them were thinking. They wondered whether helping her would bring trouble or misunderstanding. But Elias kept his voice calm and steady. "It was the right thing to do," he said. There was a long silence. Then the neighbors slowly nodded. They respected Elias, even if they didn't fully understand his choice. One man clapped him gently on the shoulder. "You've always had a good heart, Elias. Just be careful." "All right?" Elias smiled, appreciating the concern. "I will." The group slowly dispersed, heading back to their homes. Elias watched them leave before finally stepping inside his small wooden house. The familiar smell of cedar and dry grass greeted him. He lit a small lamp, washed his face with cool water, and sat down at his kitchen table. He felt tired, but it was the kind of tired that came from doing something meaningful. As he rested, he thought again about the woman. He wondered who she was, what journey she had been on, and whether she had reached her family safely. He hoped so. He also hoped she would return the horse eventually, though he didn't expect anything in return for his kindness. The next morning, Elias woke early, as he always did. The sun painted the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. Birds chirped near the window, and the smell of warm earth drifted in. He stepped outside and stretched, feeling the weight of the long walk from the previous night. His muscles were sore, but he pushed through the discomfort and began tending to his chores. Without his horse, everything took more time. He walked from one fence to another, checking each post. He guided the cattle slowly across the field, making sure none had wandered too far. He gathered water for his plants and mended a gate that had loosened in the wind. The work was tiring, but Elias kept going. He had always been the type to push forward, no matter how slow or difficult the day seemed. By midday, he paused under a tree to rest. While wiping the sweat from his forehead, he noticed someone approaching from the direction of the town. It was Mr. Grayson, an older man known for his gentle personality and wise outlook. "Morning, Elias," the older man greeted kindly. "Heard about what you did yesterday?" Elias nodded, expecting another cautious conversation, but Mr. Grayson smiled warmly. "Helping someone in need is never a wrong choice," he said softly. "It takes courage to do what you did, even when others might not understand it right away." Elias felt a sense of relief. "I just didn't want to leave her alone in the desert," Grayson nodded. "Good heart, good mind. That's what this land needs more of." The simple words warmed Elias's spirit. It reminded him that many people still saw the value of kindness, even across differences and uncertainty. When Grayson left, Elias returned to his chores with renewed energy. But as the afternoon sun grew stronger, small bits of worry crept into his thoughts. What if the woman didn't make it home safely? What if someone misunderstood his intentions? What if she didn't return the horse at all? He shook the worries away. Helping her wasn't about receiving something back. It was about doing the right thing, because it mattered. Still, he couldn't ignore the strange feeling growing inside his chest, a sense that something important was about to happen. Something connected to the woman, her journey, and the choice he had made. For now, though, the days passed quietly. Each morning, Elias woke early and worked through the heat. Each evening, he sat on his porch and watched the sky grow soft and dark. Life moved forward, familiar and steady. But the story was far from over. The woman had not forgotten what Elias had done. And soon, She would return, bringing something into his life that he never expected. Something that would touch not only him but the entire community around him. The next few days passed slowly for Elias. He woke up each morning before sunrise, stretched his tired muscles, and began his chores the way he always did. But inside his mind, there was a quiet restlessness. Every time he looked toward the eastern horizon, he wondered if the woman he had helped was safe. He wondered if she had reached her people. And although he never expected anything in return, he still hoped his horse was all right. Day after day, the same calm desert wind blew across the land. The sky was clear and wide, and the evenings came softly with shades of gold and pink. Everything seemed normal. Yet something inside Elias told him that his simple life had shifted in some way. He just didn't know how. One warm afternoon, he was repairing a section of fence when he noticed dust rising far in the distance. At first, he thought it was just wind moving through the dry ground. But the shape of the dust cloud was steady and slow, more like riders than weather. He narrowed his eyes. A small group was approaching from the east. Their silhouettes were faint at first but grew clearer as they moved closer. Elias lowered his tools and stepped away from the fence, shading his eyes with one hand. A quiet feeling spread across his chest. Something told him this moment was connected to his choice from days before. As the riders drew near, he saw that they were members of the Apache community. They moved calmly and peacefully, keeping their horses at an easy pace. There was no rush or alarm in their approach. They simply seemed focused, as if they had come with a purpose. Behind them, at the center of the group, rode the woman he had helped, the same woman he had found near the dry riverbed. She sat tall now, her posture steady, her expression calm and full of life. Her clothes were clean, her hair neatly tied back, and she looked much healthier than when Elias had last seen her. And beside her, walking confidently and strong, was his horse. Elias felt his heart lift with surprise and relief. For a moment, he simply watched, unsure of what to say or how to react. His neighbors occasionally worried about misunderstandings, but Elias didn't feel fear. His instincts told him that this group came with good intentions. The riders slowed and finally stopped a few feet away from him. The woman stepped down from his horse with ease, landing gently on the ground. She looked directly at Elias, her eyes warm and clear. He smiled softly, relieved to see her safe. "You made it home," he said gently. She nodded, placing her hand on the horse's neck as if thanking both the animal and the man who had lent it. Her voice was soft but steady when she spoke. "Yes. Your kindness helped me reach my family." Elias noticed that her English was careful and thoughtful, as though she had learned it with respect. He admired the patience in her tone. Before he could reply, one of the Apache elders stepped forward. He was an older man with wise eyes and a calm presence. He spoke respectfully, his words carrying a gentle firmness. "We came because we wished to thank you. You helped one of our own during a difficult moment. Such a thing is not forgotten." Elias nodded humbly. "I didn't do anything special. I just gave her my horse. She needed help." The woman looked at him with a small, meaningful smile. "Not everyone would do such a thing," she said. "Many would walk away. You did not." Elias felt heat rise to his cheeks, not from the sun but from their sincere words. He was not used to being praised, especially not for something he believed was simply the right thing to do. His horse walked toward him and nudged his shoulder softly. Elias laughed quietly and brushed his hand through the horse's mane. "Good to have you back, partner." The woman stepped closer. "My name is Naya," she said. Elias repeated her name, letting it settle in his mind. "I'm Elias." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two people from different communities, different worlds, yet connected by a simple act of kindness. Naya gestured toward her group. "My family and elders asked to come with me. They wished to meet you in person. They wanted to see the man who helped without hesitation." Elias nodded, still a bit overwhelmed. "I'm honored to meet all of you." The elder smiled. "You showed a generous spirit. We believe such kindness deserves acknowledgement." Elias didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to attention, and he never did good deeds for recognition. His heart felt full, yet uncertain. Naya stepped forward again, her expression thoughtful. "There is something else," she said. "I want to thank you, not only for helping me, but for helping my people." Elias looked puzzled. "Helping your people?" She nodded gently. "I was traveling to bring important herbs to a young child in our camp. He was very ill. I needed to reach home quickly. Without your help, I might not have made it in time." Her words settled over Elias like a warm blanket. He felt a soft surprise fill his chest. He had thought he was just helping someone who was tired and alone. He hadn't known the full story. He hadn't realized how much depended on that one simple decision. "That child is now recovering," Naya continued. "Your act helped save a life. My family wanted you to know that." Elias's breath caught slightly. He stared at the ground for a moment, absorbing the meaning behind her words. He had always believed kindness mattered, but hearing the true impact of his choice touched him deeply. When he finally looked up again, he saw gentle gratitude in the eyes of the Apache riders. "I'm glad she made it," he said quietly. "I'm glad the child is getting better. That's what matters." Naya stepped a little closer. "We would like to invite you to visit our camp," she said softly. "There is a ceremony happening soon. It is not usually shared with outsiders, but we wish to offer you a place in it. As a sign of respect." Elias blinked, surprised. He had heard of Apache ceremonies before, spoken of with deep reverence, but he had never imagined being invited to one. Such moments were private and filled with cultural importance. "I don't want to intrude," Elias said carefully. "Your traditions deserve respect." Naya shook her head gently. "This is why we invite you. Because you understand respect." The elder nodded in agreement. "We believe your heart is open. It would be an honor if you joined us." Elias felt both humbled and curious. The idea of visiting their camp made him a little nervous because he didn't want to misunderstand anything or seem disrespectful. But he also felt something else, a quiet, warm pull inside him, as if life was offering him a new path to learn from. "I would be honored to come," he finally said. Naya's smile widened just a little, soft and genuine. "We will come for you in 2 days," she said. "Our camp is a peaceful place. You will be welcome." The riders then prepared to leave, but before they turned away, Naya walked back toward Elias one last time. She reached out and gently placed a small, woven bracelet in his hand. It was made of colorful threads. Simple but beautiful. "This is for you," she said, a small sign of thanks. Elias looked at the bracelet, touched by the gesture. "Thank you," he said quietly. The group rode away slowly, their silhouettes becoming smaller as they disappeared into the soft afternoon light. Elias stood there for a long time, holding the bracelet, feeling a wave of new emotions wash over him. He had helped someone because it was the right thing to do. But now, something bigger was unfolding, something meaningful, unexpected, and deeply human. The journey that began with a simple act of kindness was about to lead him into a world he had never seen before. 2 days passed more slowly than any days Elias could remember. Every morning, he worked through his usual chores, but his thoughts kept drifting toward the invitation he had received. He wondered what the ceremony would be like, what the Apache camp looked like, and what new experiences waited for him there. He also wondered why life had suddenly opened such an unexpected door for him. It was almost strange. One simple act on an ordinary day had begun leading him somewhere far beyond his usual routine. He checked the small bracelet Naya had given him more times than he cared to admit. It was simple, made with care and patience, woven with soft colors that reminded him of sunsets. He kept it in his pocket during the day and placed it safely on his table at night. It was more than a gift. It felt like a quiet connection, a sign that kindness had grown into something meaningful. When the morning of the visit finally arrived, Elias woke earlier than usual. He washed up, combed his hair neatly, and put on clean clothes, not because he wanted to impress anyone, but because he wanted to show respect. He didn't know much about the customs of Naya's people, but he knew that this visit was important. It felt like a moment that deserved care. He stepped outside and waited near the edge of his property. The sun had just begun to rise, covering the land in soft gold. The air felt fresh and almost cool, carrying the gentle sound of distant birds. After a while, Elias noticed a small group of riders approaching from the east. They moved calmly, almost silently, their horses stepping through the dry grass with ease. Naya was among them, riding near the front. Her calm expression warmed him instantly. When they reached him, she greeted him with a friendly smile. "Good morning, Elias," she said in her gentle voice. "Good morning," he replied, returning her smile. "Thank you for coming." The elder who had visited before nodded respectfully. "Are you ready?" Elias took a breath and nodded. "I am." Naya guided her horse closer and motioned toward a second horse they had brought with them, a strong and gentle-looking mare. "This one will carry you," she said. "She is calm and kind." Elias approached the mare slowly, letting her sniff his hand before he climbed onto the saddle. She accepted him without hesitation, as if she already understood her purpose. The group began their journey toward the eastern hills. The ride was peaceful. The land gradually changed as they moved deeper toward Apache territory. The dry open fields softened into areas with more trees, more shade, and softer ground. The air held a faint scent of pine and warm earth. Elias found himself enjoying the calm rhythm of the horse beneath him and the quiet company around him. As they traveled, Naya occasionally glanced back to check on him, her eyes reassuring and warm. Elias appreciated the kindness. He felt comfortable, even though he was stepping into a place unfamiliar to him. After nearly an hour, the group reached a gentle valley surrounded by low hills. Small homes made from natural materials stood in peaceful clusters. Children played near the edges, their laughter soft and joyful. Elders sat together under shaded areas, speaking quietly. Everything felt balanced, calm, and full of life. Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had passed by Apache lands before from a distance, but he had never entered. He had never seen the heart of their community up close, and now that he was here, he realized how beautiful and peaceful it all was. Naya led him closer to the center of the camp, where a circle of smooth stones rested on the ground, arranged with intention and care. The elder dismounted and approached Elias. "This is where our ceremony will take place," the elder said calmly. "Tonight, when the sky becomes dark and the stars appear, we will begin." Elias nodded respectfully. "Thank you for inviting me." Naya stepped up beside him. "The ceremony is meant to bring clarity and peace to the heart," she explained. "It is a moment of gratitude, of reflection, and connection. We offer this to you, because your kindness brought hope to us." Elias felt a soft wave of humility wash over him. "I'm honored," he said quietly. They guided him to a small shaded area where he could rest until evening. A few members of the tribe brought him water and simple food, warm bread, made by hand, fresh berries, and light herbal tea. Everything was offered with gentle smiles. Elias accepted each gift with gratitude, touched by their hospitality. As the day passed, he observed the everyday life around him. Children learned from their elders, practicing small chores with pride. Women prepared meals with movements that were slow and thoughtful. Men crafted tools, shaped wood, or tended to the horses. Everything seemed connected, every action done with respect for the land and for each other. Naya checked on him occasionally, answering any questions he had, sharing small stories about her people, and listening to his simple observations about ranch life. Their conversations flowed easily. Even though they came from different worlds, Elias felt a natural connection with her. She carried herself with calm strength, and she spoke with honesty that made him feel at ease. When evening arrived and the sky began to shift into deep shades of blue, the tribe gathered around the circle of stones. Soft lanterns were placed around the edges, giving the area a warm glow. The air was cool now, and the first stars appeared in the sky. Elias took his place near the center, beside Naya and the elder. He felt a mixture of curiosity, nervousness, and quiet hope. The ceremony began with gentle voices singing. The melody was simple, flowing like a slow breeze across the hills. The sound carried a peaceful rhythm that made Elias feel unexpectedly calm. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the music settle into his heart. When he opened them again, the elder began to speak in his native language, his tone warm and steady. Though Elias didn't understand every word, he felt the meaning through the elder's voice, the gratitude, the respect, the sincerity. Naya translated softly beside him. "He thanks you for your kindness," she whispered. "He says that when kindness is shared, it returns in ways we may not expect." Elias felt a soft warmth in his chest. The ceremony continued with quiet movements. People placed small stones into the center of the circle, each stone representing something meaningful: hope, gratitude, memory, or connection. When it was Elias's turn, Naya handed him a smooth stone, warm from her palm. "You may place this in the circle," she said softly. "Think of something that matters to you. Something good." Elias held the stone gently. He thought about the moment he found Naya near the riverbed, about his mother's words, about the land he loved. He thought about how a simple act of helping someone had led him here, to this peaceful circle among people who had welcomed him with open hearts. He stepped forward and placed the stone in the circle, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude wash over him. The ceremony continued with music, gentle movements, and moments of reflection. Elias felt more peaceful than he had in a long time. It wasn't a loud or busy event. It was calm, quiet, and full of meaning. He felt connected not only to the people around him but to the land, the sky, and the quiet knowledge that doing good could ripple outward in beautiful ways. When the ceremony ended, the elder placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "You have a good heart," he said softly. "This experience is our thank you to you." Naya smiled at him with warmth in her eyes. "What did you feel?" she asked. Elias took a slow breath, searching for the right words. "I felt lighter," he said. "Like something inside me became clearer. Like the world is bigger than the small troubles I focus on." Naya nodded gently. "That is the gift of the ceremony." As the night sky deepened and the stars glowed brighter, Elias realized he had experienced something rare, something more valuable than anything he had imagined. And as he looked at Naya and at the peaceful camp around him, he felt that this moment would stay with him for the rest of his life. The sun rose slowly over the wide desert, painting the sky with soft colors of orange and gold. The cool morning breeze carried the smell of sand, cactus, and wildflowers that had bloomed after the recent rain. Ethan sat near the small fire he had made, watching the flames dance quietly. He felt calm, but his mind was full of thoughts. Everything that had happened in the last few days played again and again in his head: meeting Yana, helping her, traveling with her, learning from her, and now facing the moment when their paths might separate. Yana stepped out of her little shelter made from branches and cloth. Her steps were light, almost silent, and Ethan noticed how peaceful she looked compared to the first day he met her. The tiredness and fear in her face had disappeared. Now she looked strong, steady, and grateful. "You woke up early," she said softly. "Couldn't sleep much," Ethan replied with a small smile. "A lot to think about." She nodded and sat across from him near the fire. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the fire, listening to the soft crackling of the wood and the distant sound of the wind weaving through the desert plants. Ethan finally broke the silence. "You'll be heading back soon, won't you?" His voice was calm, but there was a hint of sadness hidden inside it. "Yes," Yana answered gently. "My people will be waiting for me. They will need to know I am safe, and I need to return to my mother." She paused. "But that doesn't mean I forget what you did." Ethan lowered his eyes. "I didn't do much," he said quietly. "I only helped someone who needed help. Anyone would have done the same." "Not everyone," she replied. "Some would have turned away. Some would have judged me without knowing my story. Some would have thought only about themselves. But you gave me your only horse. You walked miles to make sure I reached safety. You shared food, water, and time. That is not something I forget. Her words warmed him in a way he couldn't explain. He wasn't used to hearing praise. He lived a simple life, moving from town to town, working honest jobs, keeping to himself. Kindness, for him, was natural, but hearing someone value it so deeply felt different. It felt meaningful. Yana reached into the small bag beside her. "There is something I must give you," she said. Ethan looked up, surprised. "You don't have to give me anything," he said quickly. "Helping you was the right thing. That's enough." "I know," she said with a gentle smile. "But I want to give this. It is important to me, and I believe it will bring something good to your life." She unwrapped a small cloth, revealing a polished stone pendant. It was smooth and shaped like a teardrop, with tiny natural designs running across it. The stone had a soft glow when it caught the sunlight. Ethan had never seen anything like it. "This belonged to my grandmother," Yana said quietly. "She gave it to my mother, and my mother gave it to me when I turned 16. It is passed from one generation to another. We give it to someone who has changed our life in a meaningful way." Ethan shook his head slowly. "Yana, I can't take this. It's family. It's yours. It is meant for you," she said firmly but kindly. "You think you only helped me survive. But you have given me more than that. You have shown me that kindness exists even where people believe it cannot. You gave without expecting anything in return. That has value. And this," she placed the pendant gently in his hand, "is how I show my gratitude." Ethan held the pendant carefully, almost as if he feared it might break. He could feel the history in it, the love carried through generations. He closed his fingers around it, still unsure but touched in a way he couldn't put into words. "Thank you," he finally whispered. "I'll keep it safe." "You don't keep it safe," Yana said, smiling. "You carry it with you. It protects you. It guides your heart. That is how it holds its meaning." Ethan nodded, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. He placed the pendant around his neck. It felt surprisingly light, but he could sense its importance. They shared their simple breakfast, dried berries and bread, while the sun rose higher. The morning slowly turned bright, and the shadows shortened. After packing up their small camp, they prepared to part ways. Yana would travel toward her village, which was hidden behind the distant hills. Ethan would head back toward the open plains, toward the path he had been traveling before their meeting. As they stood facing each other, Ethan felt something squeeze his heart. He had grown used to her company. Her presence had become a kind of calmness he didn't know he needed. Saying goodbye felt heavier than he expected. "Take care of yourself," he said softly. "I will," she replied. "And you too. Life on the plains is not always easy. But you have a strong heart. It will lead you well." He smiled a little. "If you ever need help again, or if you ever want to talk, I'll be around somewhere." I know," she said, "and I will never forget." She stepped forward and surprised him by giving him a gentle, respectful hug. Ethan felt a quiet wave of emotion wash over him. The hug lasted only a moment, but it carried sincerity, trust, and gratitude. When they stepped apart, Yana took a deep breath and began walking toward the hills. Ethan watched her go, the pendant resting against his chest. The desert stretched endlessly around him, but now it felt different, almost alive with meaning. After she disappeared into the distance, Ethan finally turned and began walking toward the plains. The day grew warmer, but he didn't mind the heat. His steps felt lighter, his mind clearer. As he walked, he thought about everything he had learned, not only about Yana, but also about himself. He had always believed kindness was simple, something that didn't need attention or reward. But now he realized kindness could reach deeper than he imagined. It could heal, connect, and change the direction of someone's life. He also realized something else. Meeting Yana had given him a gift far beyond the pendant. She had shown him that even in a world full of challenges, trust could still be built between strangers. Respect could still grow between people from different backgrounds. Understanding could still bloom in the most unexpected moments. Days later, Ethan returned to a nearby town. He found work at a small stable and made new friends. People noticed the pendant he wore and often asked about it. But he never told the full story. Not because he wanted to hide it, but because the memory felt personal, almost sacred. Whenever he touched the pendant, he felt the quiet strength it carried. It reminded him of a brave young woman he had helped on a dusty day in the desert. It reminded him of the bond they formed through kindness and trust. And it reminded him that sometimes, when you give something away like a horse, time, or effort, you receive something far greater in return. Months passed. But Ethan never forgot Yana. And somewhere beyond the hills, in her own village, Yana carried the memory of a cowboy who had shown her unexpected kindness when she needed it the most. Their paths had crossed only for a short time, but the impact stayed with them both forever. Their story became a reminder that true generosity had power, and that gratitude could take many forms. Sometimes, it came as a simple stone pendant passed through generations. Sometimes, it came as a quiet change in the heart. And sometimes, it lived on as a story worth telling again and again. And so, even though they walked in different directions, they both carried something precious from each other, something beyond imagination, something that stayed with them for the rest of their lives.